Hey, everybody. We are talking sales tech today with Salesloft. Q4 is upon us. We're going to finish the year strong. And what a great conversation I hope to have about the sales tech landscape with Frank Dale. Frank, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. Great to be on here and excited to talk about this with you today.
So, thanks for being here. Maybe introduce yourself, of course, but also your mission and your place in this emerging sales tech ecosystem.
Yeah, happy to. So I lead product management here at Salesloft, and our mission is to transform the profession of sales. We want to make sellers more respected by the buyers that they serve. We
Oh,
believe
wow.
that is the best thing that we can do for sales, and if we do that for sales, sellers will be more successful, buyers will be happier, and everyone wins. So that's what we do here.
Well, that's a pretty simple elevator pitch. I love it. So tell us about your personal journey to SVP product management. A little bit about your background. Have you worked in sales for many years as well as in tech and as an entrepreneur? I'd love to hear a bit of your bio.
Yeah, happy to. So I started my career in sales. Realized pretty early on that I was probably a better fit as a product person, but started in sales because my dad sold and he sold for 40 years. So sales was very much a dinner table type conversation for me. And in some ways, I joke that I'm kind of like a coach's kid. I grew up around it. My dad was very good at it. It's just what I knew growing up. And then as I transitioned into product and then ultimately had the opportunity to run a couple of companies, recognized that there were ways technology could help sellers that were not being addressed. And as a result, critical problems were not being solved for them. And so ended up starting a company. And I did it by literally going out and talking to customers. So
Hmm.
I interviewed 40 different sales leaders and sellers, each for an hour, iterated into a product. By the end of that, 5 companies wanted to buy it before we were going to build it, which is always a good sign. And that means you should go build the thing. We did raise venture capital, started growing the company. And then about 2.5 years in, Salesloft, who had been a customer and a partner, approached us to join them. And we agreed to do that. So we were acquired by Salesloft. I came in initially to lead our product, and then within about a year was leading all of product management. And I've been doing that for the last 3 years. So I'm 4 years in here, loving the people that we serve, loving the people that I work with, and just enjoying everything that we do.
Wow, what a great story. So when I started sales in 92, inside sales with a tech company, the tech was basically a voicemail box and a pager and a telephone. And that was my tech stack. So it's hard to imagine how far we have come in terms of an entire AI sales tech landscape. It's pretty amazing. Give us a snapshot of this. Where are we now in this world? Where do you fit in this sort of ecosystem of sales technology platforms?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that, Evan. It is transitioned dramatically. So when I started in sales, which would have been early 2000s, I had a phone and I had a spreadsheet and I had post-it notes. And I remember when we got Salesforce at the time, that was kind of the first big cloud CRM. That was like a big deal. But like my workday was looking in the CRM, making calls, and I used a spreadsheet to kind of keep track of who I was reaching out to, what was going on with my deals until we put Salesforce in for the opportunities. And then I would like track my calls on post-it notes. I literally have post-it notes reminding me of like the questions to ask. You fast forward to today, and the profession is just entirely different. Like some of the fundamentals, like the way you connect with an individual, that has not changed and it should not change. But the
Mm.
technology has changed dramatically. So we provide the industry's first and only AI-powered workflow for sellers. And what that means is all the problems I had when I was an early seller, we address. So, today somebody goes into SalesLoft, a couple of things are there for them. First, all the communication tools that they need. So they don't have like 5 different places they've got to go to send an email, to
Mm.
make text messages, to do calls like this one. It's all in one place. But it's not just all in one place. All the details they need about customers that they're talking to, deals that are in flight, also all in one place, all talking back to other systems the company uses like the CRM. But the magic is that we take all of the things that this seller could do. So all of those different calls, emails, all the follow-ups for a
Mm.
deal, and we rank and prioritize it for them using AI. Because at the end of the day, time management is everything in sales. It is absolutely everything in sales. And
Mm.
so knowing where to allocate your time is often the difference between being a high performer and missing your number. And so what our AI does is it looks at those activities, ranks them, and it suggests to the seller based on what's going on with their buyer what you should do next. So every day you just come in, know exactly what to do. You don't have to worry about it. We suggest it to you, and then we make it easy to execute it because we integrate with all the things that you need. So it is an entirely different world than the one that I grew up in.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So rewinding a little bit, what was the market need that you saw at the time that your platform, I think Rhythm is the platform, right? So what led
Right.
to its development? What was the big idea on investing all that time and effort at that time, which is going back a few years?
Yeah, it was a big bet. Like it was a big
Mhm.
bet, and easily in my career, the largest product that I've released. I've been fortunate to take 5 different products to market for the first time, which is not common. And this was easily the biggest release I've ever done. And the way we got comfortable with that was doing what most teams should do and do not do, right? And it's the same thing that candidly great sellers do. You go out and you meet with the customer and you deeply and thoroughly understand their workday. And
Mm.
the thing that we do that I don't see enough product teams do, and I talk to my peers at other companies across categories, we go watch people work. We
Mm.
literally go and watch people work. And one of the things that we observed was that while technology had been helping sellers be a little bit more productive, and that was great, and all of the things that have been invented were certainly advancing the profession of sales, the challenge was they were also making it difficult to sell. And the way we recognize that is we literally, I will not forget this, in a 2-hour period, we watched one seller and she got like 20 notifications and they were coming across multiple systems. There was like an
Mm.
alert from the CRM. She got a bunch of different messages in her inbox, things like, hey, please submit your forecast. There were Slack messages because they happen to use Slack around different customers and prospects. She had video views coming in because she would send like clips to the customer. And then she was getting notifications from us. And what was happening is instead of having a unified view of that customer, this poor seller was jumping from system to system to system to system, trying to understand what to do next. And what that was leading to was not only were they slower, so they were less productive, which is like the opposite of what you want your technology to do,
Right.
but they were dropping balls because they're human and because the deals were fragmented across all of these places. It was really hard to know what to do next. And so when we recognized that, it was kind of the problem that everyone had that no one could quite express. But by watching people, we uncovered it. And that's what caused us to go build Rhythm.
Oh, fantastic story. So you must get a lot of praise, not from customers, but also the sellers themselves. It helps with their sales and productivity and workflow. I mean, is that the win?
It is the one. Yeah, because ultimately at the end of the day, and I think this is hard for most product people to hear, no one wants to buy your product. Like no one wants to buy your product.
How dare you?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's the simple truth, right? No one wants to buy your product. What they want is what they were hoping to achieve. They want the outcomes. And so the way that we measure things here is, are customers generating better outcomes or are they not? Are you generating more meetings, more pipeline, closing more deals? Are those customers happier with you? And so we measure that. And what we see is that sellers are two things when they use this platform. They're generating better outcomes. So all of the things that I mentioned, sales cycles are shorter, deal volume is up, so they're closing more deals, and the value of those deals is up, so they understand the buyer better. But two, they also get more done in less time. So the workday is not quite as long as it used to for you. That is an absolute game changer. So that's the way we measure success.
Oh, fantastic. Let's talk about AI a little bit. I mean, maybe we'll start with big picture. Is AI going to get rid of sellers? You must get that a lot. But then more specifically, realistically, how is AI transforming these workflows and the day to day in reality?
It's a great question, Evan, and I think there's a lot of angst out there, not just in sales, but in a number of professions around AI. And I think in sales, we do not believe sellers are going to go away. And the reason I say that is that at the end of the day, a sale happens when one person connects with another to solve a problem. And that requires trust and credibility. And humans can build that with other humans. Deals do not buy themselves. So we do not believe the seller is going to go away. In fact, what we want to do is enable the seller to do the thing that they're best at, which is to connect with other people and to have empathy. So where AI, I think, comes in to support sales, and you'll see this in other professions as well, is really kind of in two ways. We are going to make them more productive, and it's often by automating low value manual and repetitive work. So really simple example.
Mm.
You get an out of office reply message from someone. You might have had some tasks due to follow up with them. There's a bunch of manual work for you to maybe reschedule them to the next day or try to remember when to do it. We just automate all of that for you. We pull it up instead on the day that they get back or the day after they get back. You don't have to think about that. Or writing an email, we may suggest some content to you based on what the response was to speed up the draft. But we know humans are best at connecting with other humans. You still need to edit and review that, right? So AI should make you more productive, and it's often by automating low value manual and repetitive work. The second thing that it's great at is decision support.
Mm.
Humans get bombarded by a lot of things. And if you go back to one of the things that I mentioned, which is the reason we built Rhythm in the first place, which is that sellers were getting bombarded by information across all of this technology that they were using. It's hard to keep track of all of that, right? And if you only have one customer, like if you are the only person I'm serving all day, every day, well, I should be all over it. That's pretty easy. But the reality is most people don't work that way. They work with lots of customers. They could have 20, 30, or 40 that they're dealing with. So remembering all the key details, being able to follow up at the right time, and recognizing when there might be a risk in a relationship, it's hard to do that systematically across all of those things. AI is great at that. It is great at identifying risk, flagging it, and making recommendations. And at the end of the day, what you want is the human then to say, does this recommendation make sense or does it not? Because while machines can do a lot of things, it turns out they're not great at empathy, but humans are. So when we see AI helping sellers, it's really going to be on those two areas. It's going to automate low value manual and repetitive work, and it's going to be decision support. We're going to augment that human so they can do more and be more successful in the things that they do.
A wonderful approach. What's the role of sales leadership, sales management in this process, and how is that changing both in the industry and with your tools? What can they, benefit from this kind of new approach?
For me, sales management is very much about coaching and scaling insights. And we should
Mm.
probably delineate the levels. So you've got like the frontline sales manager, and then you might have a director or a RevOps or the CRO. They're all looking at different things. If I'm a frontline sales manager, we'll take that person first. I might have 6 to 8 sellers that could each have 20 to 40 deals. So it's possible that my team is managing 320 customer relationships at once. That is not something one person can scale to without support. AI, on the other hand, can look across all of those relationships and essentially say, across your portfolio that your team runs, whether it's customers or net new opportunities, here are the areas you need to lean in on. These are the deals where it's going great, and you need to congratulate the team. You need to support them. These are the ones that are at risk, but actually are pretty good deals based on the deals that we've seen in the past that close. Here's what we suggest you do. Reach out to the seller, and these are the 3 areas to dig into with
Mm.
them. So it's going to provide augmentation and decision support for that manager. As we go up and up each level, it's aggregating all of that data, because the challenge is the triage problem just becomes more and more complex the higher up you go in the organization. And what people need today is not more charts, not more reports, not more graphs, not more data tables, but they need our insights, and they need support getting those insights. They need to know, what are the 1 to 3 things I can do each day that move the needle. AI is great for that. And that's why we're building that kind of decision support for each level of the revenue organization.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, when I was, later in my career, I was using tools like Salesforce and, of course, working with lots of data, and it became such a grind, slave to the spreadsheet and the reporting and the are you trying to make that easier? Maybe make more sales fun again in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. Like no one I know, and I certainly when I started in sales, and I can tell you based on the many conversations I've had with my dad, who's now happily retired, no one ever gets into sales because they want to do the admin work. No one. Like if that's what you enjoy, there are lots of other professions that are great for that. Not sales. Sales is about what you and I are doing right now, which is having a conversation and connecting with each other. And so where AI really helps, as I mentioned, is it takes a lot of that admin work and the drudgery out. So it automates the status updates. It automates the activity logging because the company needs that data. It automates even things like writing post-call action item follow-up emails. So one of the things that we released
Mm,
with Rhythm, which is awesome, and I would have very much used this as a young person in sales, is we will, if the customer has, we will extract from the transcript what happened in the call. So we'll write a quick summary for the seller and the action items. We'll automatically put that into an email that the seller can review. They can make some quick edits and they send it out. And two things happen there. We've taken something that might have taken an hour and we've turned it into 10 minutes or less. So it is 90% faster or better. And we've helped that seller build a great relationship with that buyer because what you've just communicated to that buyer is I follow up when I'm saying I'm going to, I listen, and I do the things that you can trust me, that you have asked me to do. And as a result, you are a trustworthy person to work with. And therefore, I believe I can trust this company. That's how deals get closed today. So AI is going to do all of those things. We're building more and more technology into Salesloft to pull more and more of kind of that drudgery out of sales so that the seller can focus on the thing that they want to, and that is closing deals.
fantastic. Well, it's so exciting. Describe this sales tech landscape or industry. Uh, Martech has become, an industry, the thousands of players. What's your position in this space? It sounds like you're one of the fastest growing companies in this space. And how do you fit in the general tech landscape? I mean, with a Salesforce or other CRMs or other kind of SAPs of the world, do you sort of plug and play with the rest of the tech stack?
Yeah, we do. I think back to the James Barksdale quote, right? Like, oh, you know, there's only two ways I know to make money: bundling and unbundling, right?
Hmm.
And the reason he said that is technology tends to go through cycles. We go through cycles where we have a ton of point solutions, and then people realize that is actually unwieldy and hard to manage. And I think we're there. And then what happens is people realize they need platforms. So to your point on
Hmm.
MarTech, I lived through that. My early career was in MarTech. I built products for marketers. Um, One of the things that's interesting, I would argue, between if you compare marketing and sales, is that in marketing, the data needs to be aggregated, but a lot of the people doing the work, in some ways, they're specialists, right? So if you go to most
Hmm.
companies, they're probably going to have somebody that's like an SEO specialist. They might be the email marketing specialist. Someone else might be focused on marketing automation.
Hmm.
Another person could be focused on analytics. They all have specialist tools, and that makes a lot of sense. What's fascinating and interesting about sellers is, at least when we get to the front lines, they're kind of generalists. They have a lot of different workflows that they go through during a workday. They're sending emails, they're making calls, they're doing text messages, they're writing documents, they're updating the CRM. There's a bunch of things that they need to do. And when you see things like that, it tends to yield better results for the end user if it's highly and deeply integrated and it becomes more of a platform. And so when you look at the way sales tech has started to evolve, it's becoming very much a platform market. And there's really two reasons to do that when you're on our end of that. So you're building technology. There's what I would call door number one, and this is a bad reason. And then there's door number two. So let's talk door number one. Companies that want to become platform companies and they're multi-product, if they go through door number one, they do it because it turns out, and lots of sales software companies have figured this out, being multi-product is a great way to grow, right? We've learned this in the physical world. If you have more things that you can sell to customers that have similar needs, selling more things to that same customer is a heck of a lot easier than selling to somebody new. The problem with that approach, and I see this a lot in the market, not just in our industries, but others, is what you get is a big bag of parts. And the whole point of bringing things together for a customer should be to make life easier for them. It should be to make them more effective. Like that's the only reason to add additional products to what you build. And so we have chosen door number two, which is harder. It's harder to build, but better for the customer. And that is if we build a new thing or we add to our platform, man, it better be better together or there's no reason to do it. And so when I look at our position in the market right now, I see a lot of people wanting to be multi-product. What I don't see is a lot of people thinking about the impact to the customer of the decisions that are getting made there. And so when we build things, we will sometimes trade off adding that next feature for making sure that you can complete an end-to-end workflow and everything is deeply and thoroughly integrated and all of the data flows and is consistent across the product. Because it turns out when we do that, it's easier to use. And if it's easier to use, people actually use it because the number one predictor of human behavior is ease. And if people use it, the customer gets value out of the investment in the software. They get the outcomes that they wanted to. And that's just a better business relationship for everyone. So when you look at where we sit in the ecosystem, while we have to integrate with things like Salesforce, and we do, and the CRM and other systems, we've become kind of the platform for execution for sellers. Like we orchestrate the way their revenue motion actually works. And what that simply means is that companies have woken up to the fact that the CRM is a great database and it's used by the enterprise to have a holistic place to store all of this customer information, but it's actually not a good place to go and do your work. And that is what we are. We are the place where sellers go and they actually do the work of engaging with your buyers. And then we take all that data that we generate and we help you understand what works and doesn't. So that's where we fit. We're very complementary to the CRM, but we solve a very different problem.
Yeah, sounds fascinating. So when I look back on my sales career, it's countless hours of sales training,
Yeah.
these week-long boondoggles, and they were fun. I'm not sure what I retained from those besides, hangovers, but, hours and hours of sales training.
Yeah.
Is your approach also training and coaching? And do you think in the future we'll do more of that with AI and, a Jarvis for coaching and Copilot for, the right thing to say when and where and how?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I love that you use the word Jarvis. So when we talk about our technology and the way that we build for the seller, we say we build Iron Man suits, not the Terminator, because you're exactly right. Our goal is to augment the human, to support them and to elevate them, not to replace them. So we very much think in Jarvis terminology. Absolutely. Like, I mean, if you think about coaching, where does coaching come from? Coaching comes from watching what someone does. So how does the seller engage with the buyer? Taking that interaction and all the data that's generated and using it to help people improve the way that they perform. I mean, that is true across professions. We want to look at what someone's done. We want to look at the outcome, learn from it, and then take that learning to improve the way someone performs. And so the way that we build, where we are very fortunate because we built from a platform first mindset, is we get the most holistic picture of the customer of any platform in our space. And I feel very confident in saying that. We get all of the emails the seller sends, we get the responses from the buyer, we get the text messages, the responses from the buyer. We record calls like this one, we get the transcript and the recording. And because we are a platform and lots of other solutions integrate with us, all of those signals I mentioned earlier on, those video views, email opens, contract viewed but not signed from like DocuSign or Ironclad, all of that stuff flows into Salesloft, which means we have a record of what the buyer is doing even when the seller's not in the room. And that data set is a very special data set. And it's a data set unlike any data set that has ever existed in the history of sales. And so what we do with it is we model it. And we're using that data now that we're modeling it to provide coaching recommendations to frontline sellers. Some of those things will come in the way of just recommendations on what to do next. But as you know, we're building towards a major release here in June where we're going to release what we're calling an insights engine. And that insights engine's job is to take all of that data, come across it and say, hey, here are the 3 things you can do, seller, right now to improve the way you engage with the buyer that will dramatically change your results. And we're going to take that same information and we're going to provide it to the manager and to RevOps and to the CRO so they know exactly where to spend their time. So that is exactly what we're doing.
Wow, fantastically interesting. Well, Thanks so much. So exciting to get a peek into the future of sales here. What are you excited about for the rest of the year as you sort of wind down, wind up into next year? Any travel or events left? Or you sort of heads down for next year?
Yeah, so thankfully I'm almost heads down for next year. We did a pretty successful roadshow this year. We met customers,
Mm,
all over the world. I was in London recently for that, and then Austin very shortly after that. So we are gearing up for the next year, which I'm excited for. And yeah, for those of you in the same grind, especially the sellers heading into Q4, I know that this is crunch time, and I just wish you the best of luck because I know that this is the moment where you're tired because we're at the end of the year and it's stressful, but it's also the moment that matters the most.
indeed. Any final thought here? Any favorite sales movies or books you want to call out to? We all have our favorites. Anyone come to mind?
Oh, there's so many good ones. So there are a couple I can think of off the top of my head. When I was a young seller, I used to live and die by "You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bicycle" at a seminar. So it was the old Sandler book. I'm a huge fan of the work Chris Voss has done in Never
Mm,
Split the Difference. I think that is just as applicable to sales as it is to negotiation. The challenger sale is obviously another fave. We are a big medic shop here, which is a kind of a qualification framework. I would recommend Andy White's book on medic as well. Those are all things that immediately come to mind. But at the end of the day, the world runs on sales. Like we all know that. And so what I would advocate that you do is if you have a seller in your life, please hug them because this is the time of year when they are probably the most stressed, the most tired, and yet doing the thing that matters the most for everyone in your company.
well, wonderful advice. You took that question very seriously. I was going to suggest Glengarry Glen Ross, my favorite
Uh,
selling movie, over a glass of cognac, but that's for after the quarter is closed. So
exactly.
thanks so much, Frank. Thanks for joining us and sharing the vision and the insights. Really valuable. And thanks everyone for watching. Reach out to Salesloft with any questions or comments.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.